Good afternoon, Cedarfield family. This is Michael Shaw serving as Executive Director. It is April 23rd at 3 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. If you are tuning in live, we appreciate you spending some time with us. We have some really good information to share this afternoon. Those of you that are viewing this from home tonight, if you have any questions about the content of this video, please feel free to call the administration suite tomorrow. So, humble and kind, I was listening to that song last night by Tim McGraw, and I just could not be more humbled to be leading Cedarfield right now. I could not be more humbled to be leading this great campus. I must admit, I'm not the smartest person in every room, nor I don't need to be. We encourage people to speak up. We respect differences of opinion and champion the best ideas, regardless of where they originate, whether it's from somebody on the front line, whether it's someone from the pastoral services department, whether it's a supervisor, a manager, whether it's counsel from outside of Cedarfield. We harness those ideas. So my job, I feel, is to harness the input from everyone and let it carry it through Cedarfield. I and many people certainly encourage to emulate this approach, a culture of getting the best out of every team member and the best out of every individual, and getting the best out of the residents, getting the best out of the families. Everyone has a perspective. Everyone has a vocation. Everyone has opinion. And it's our job to harness that in the best way that we can and shape it to make Cedarfield the best it can be. So when I think about humility, I also think about sincerity, I think about fairness and truthfulness, unpretentiousness, being authentic. And that's our approach right now. As God as my witness, that is our approach. What's also my approach is lifting up some important values to Cedarfield and Pinnacle Living. They are diversity, culture, stewardship, hospitality, quality, and partnership. And so that's how I do my job right now. Harnessing the energy, lifting up our culture, and being as transparent as I humanly possibly can do. If anybody has any questions about our approach, please feel free to call down to the administration office. If you don't feel comfortable talking with me, there's certainly other avenues that you can talk to within the Pinnacle Living environment as well. So I invite you to explore those options as well. Okay, so next up is our COVID-19 communication plan. So in the last couple of days, we've been talking about communicating timely and accurately information so that everyone has the best information available to them. We're talking about ensuring everyone's health and well-being while being transparent and providing privacy and confidentiality during this worldwide COVID-19 pandemic. So I want to break down these 6 areas. There are 6 areas a part of our COVID-19 communication plan. And the first area has to do with preparedness plans. So just want to talk a little bit about what is our approach at Cedarfield, specifically over in the licensed areas? And our approach right now is to cohort. We are taking each level of care and we're breaking those levels of care down into further neighborhoods so that we can group residents and group team members who are caring for those residents. And that's a really important distinction, because as this situation has been unfolding for the last 7 weeks, the best way to prevent or slow an outbreak, if an outbreak starts to happen, is to make sure that you, to the best of your ability, have those floors separated so that you can isolate the issue. And that's what we did 3 weeks ago before we even had our first case. So we're cohorting the floor plan in each of the licensed areas. Secondly, we are restricting sharing of staff between all of those neighborhoods, including maintenance team, the housekeeping team, rehab services, not to mention the nurses, the dietary folks. We're doing an unbelievable job of trying to restrict sharing between those neighborhoods. We're trying to restrict the residents from those being in those specific neighborhoods. We're doing a great job of that and enforcing social distancing even in that neighborhood and self-quarantining. We're restricting points of access to Cedarfield. So every team member, every private duty person that is deemed critically essential that's coming to work here, they have one of 7 entrances that they have to enter to get into one of these restricted areas. We have implemented a mandatory universal use of face masks for team members and any private duty folks. We have signs outside of every resident apartment that talks about hand washing, covering your mouth if you happen to cough. A lot of folks that do have allergies. But then more importantly, there's a personal protective equipment outline out in front of every door that outlines how to go about donning and doffing of PPE. And we have been really working hard at infection control practices around food, going from the main kitchen down to these licensed areas. And then lastly, we're trying to use that elevator over by the bridge in assisted living for emergency uses only. So this is our current evolving preparedness plan. These last 7 or 8 tidbits that I just shared with you, the Department of Health is trying to spread these tidbits within all nursing homes in Wright County. So that's the first piece of our communication plan. Second is disclosure of information. We want to be as transparent with residents and families and team members as we humanly possibly can do that. We have committed to sharing cumulative number of residents and team members who have been tested and updating the number of confirmed COVID-19 test results regularly. So to date, here are some of those statistics. We have tested 3 residents so far during these last 7 weeks. 2 of those residents have tested positive for COVID-19. To date, we have tested 5 team members, or they have voluntarily tested themselves. And to date, we have we have one team member that has tested positive. So those are some of the statistics. And over the last 48 hours, some people have emailed me about why aren't we telling the story behind these statistics, and I'm going to get into that in a couple of minutes. But we're not disclosing folks' names, their age, their health status, or other private information about those individuals. So that is the second piece to our communication plan. The third has to do with partnering with our local Virginia Department of Health in working not only in partnership with them, but constantly collaborating with them. And I'm going to show you a couple of pictures to highlight what we have been doing since Friday of last week. This is a picture of our fellowship hall where I'm reporting from right now. And on Monday, there were 4 epidemiologists that were here on site. You can see in this picture that they are gearing up in their equipment. We asked the Virginia Department of Health to come visit us. We have an open door here at Cedarfield. The more eyes on this, the better. We are not the experts, obviously, with COVID-19. So we had like I said, we had 4 epidemiologists visit here on Monday. We first had we called a tabletop interview, where we sat socially distant in the fellowship hall. There's about 11 of us, I think, in the room. And we had a discussion, and we talked about some general questions that they had, just dealing with given their own protocols. And then we forwarded, go back to the screen. We forwarded these epidemiologists our entire preparedness plan. We updated some of the things that we did last weekend, even in that preparedness plan. And there were 4 epidemiologists. Here they are here, all dressed up. Over a 48-hour period of time, I forwarded that preparedness plan in advance to them so before they even came on Monday. And they were combing through our preparedness plan. To date, that preparedness plan is 37 pages long. So, they left the fellowship hall. Here's another picture of them walking down the hall past my office on their way to the licensed areas. They originally only really wanted to go up to the health center, but we asked them if they could go down to Sunshine Plaza, our memory support area, assisted living, and the health center. And they took us up on our offer. Okay, come back. So, 4 epidemiologists looking at our entire preparedness plan, a site visit that lasted a few hours. When they debriefed with us right here in the fellowship hall on Monday afternoon, we asked them, do you have any suggestions for us? And the answer was no. They said, Michael, and Matt was in here, and Melissa, and Ann Hopper, and Dr. Shear, they cheered us on. They said, keep doing what you're doing. This is unbelievable. It's not good news that you've had 1 or 2 cases, but you are doing the best that you can. This is unprecedented, this preparedness plan. We actually, in fact, are going to share your preparedness plan without your company name on it with other nursing homes in Henrico County. And so, I say all that, remember the opening song here. I say all that not to boast. I say that to hopefully give you confidence that the Cedarfield team is working as hard as we can, given our own intellect and our own policies and harnessing our own creativity, but yet harnessing the partnership of folks even outside of Cedarfield. To include inviting 4 epidemiologists walking through our front door, happily, to invite them into our campus. Furthermore, we had a conference call last night with those epidemiologists and Dr. Danny Avula, who you see constantly on the news, in addition to 2 other members with the Department of Health. So last night, we had a conference call. In addition to those folks on that call were Matt Dameron, our Associate Executive Director, and Chris Henderson, our Chief Executive Officer, Dan Etzel, our Chief Operating Officer, and a few other people from the Pinnacle Living Office. We were on the phone for 90 minutes. The agenda item was twofold. One, reviewing the site visit that they conducted on Monday. Now, after they had a couple days to digest the information, digest our preparedness plan and our policies, digest the site visit, and be able to really come up with maybe another action plan that we should consider. And then the second thing on the agenda for this conference call was point surveillance survey, otherwise known as mass testing. So first, a little bit about that site visit. Last night, as we were talking through the reality of the current reality of Cedarfield, I brought everybody up to speed from Monday through last night with the reality of what is happening at Cedarfield. Talking about the second positive case, we were talking about the number of people that are in isolation, we were talking about just a lot of the things that are happening right now in the licensed areas and even in independent living. And so I asked them again, I said, given the fact that we have been talking all weekend long, you arrived here on Monday with a site visit, and you've had a couple of days to absorb what we're doing. Is there any other suggestions that you have for us about our current approach? And on that conference call, they were sharing with us how pleased they are to see and hear and read what we're doing. They had one suggestion for us within the rehab services department, which we had a conference call this morning with Beth Hines and the folks with Health Pro Heritage about further cohorting therapists across the campus. And so we're going to take their suggestion and we're employing it effective tomorrow. So then the last 30 minutes of this conference call had to deal with point prevalence survey. It's the most frequently asked question. Michael, why aren't you testing everybody? Everyone should be tested across the whole campus, or maybe even in the health center. And so, just to back up a second, we had 6 epidemiologists on this conference call. They are the expert around this. I am not the expert around mass testing. And so we asked the question to this group, what should we do here at Cedarfield? And so we talked about point prevalence survey, mass testing. We talk about it as a snapshot in time We talked about our availability to the lab down in downtown Richmond, the DCLS lab. We talked about how available the Department of Health representatives can be to Cedarfield if we want to test residents and or team members. And then they started talking about from an epidemiologist perspective, that there is no playbook. There's no database. There's no procedure. So if you begin to do mass testing, there are nursing homes in the county that are doing point prevalence survey. If you start to do that, you have to develop an entire process and a system to track not just positives and negatives. There's a whole other set of items you have to track, and the epidemiologists don't even have a database available that they could lend us to even track it. And so, while point prevalence surveying is available, not quite just yet at Cedarfield because we haven't reached an outbreak, we're on their list. I asked them to add us to the list. We're not very far, we're not high on the top of their list right now. We're kind of on the low end of their list due to all the other preparedness plans that we have in place. But here's what the biggest lesson I learned last night and over the last 6 days talking to these specialists. They said, Michael, the name of the game right now is not mass testing. It gives you a snapshot in time, positives and negatives. It's a false sense of security. What they told me that I could do 10 times more effective is to aggressively and vigilantly go after infection control. I asked them, there's one thing, what would you advise me to do? And that's it. Aggressive infection control. And having a point person designated at Cedarfield to be the Chief Infection Control Vice President, so to speak. And that person just educates, communicates, they train trainers on how to be watching for every micro step that we are doing in the license side, and even in independent living. They have convinced me that at this point, that is the best approach. And continuing with our evolving preparedness plan that we already have in place. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take our current infection control approach. I have forwarded that approach to the epidemiologists. I have forwarded to them our levels of personal protective equipment, and they're going to help me develop a stronger infection control plan. Meanwhile, Matt Dameron and I are trying to find a team member here that would serve as that Chief Infection Control Officer to help us vigilantly implement another plan. So that's our approach. Aggressive, vigilant infection control. And that's not to say that our infection control to date has been lacking. They were very impressed. Again, I say this with all humility. They were very impressed with our infection control efforts to date. Our inventory levels of all of what we have in housekeeping and maintenance, how we have that all deployed throughout the campus, they had no suggestions, current suggestions, about our infection control practice. But we're going to partner with them. We're going to partner with 4 epidemiologists. We're going to make a stronger plan, and then we're going to go at infection control like we've never done it before. So that's our approach. If anybody has any questions about partnering with the local Virginia Department of Health, my door is open, or you can certainly call me or text me throughout the night. This is a really important part of our COVID-19 communication plan. The 4th area with our COVID-19 communication plan has to do with team members. And I just want to re-emphasize to folks that team members who test positive will not be permitted to return to work until they are released to return to work by a physician. Another important point about this, just as we are not sharing names and sex and other personal information about residents who have tested positive for COVID, we are not doing the same for team members. That is private information that only the team member really needs to know. The 5th piece, and there's just 2 more here, the 5th piece to our COVID-19 communication plan has to do with confirmed cases. So every time we have a confirmed case, we will send out another memo, as we've done in the first 2 instances, to communicate to everybody that we have another positive result. Again, transparency is paramount in this effort, and we want people to know as timely as we possibly can get that information into your hands. So in the 2nd instance, when we had our 2nd confirmed case, it was within 2 hours that we were able to generate another memo, copy that memo, put it on our website, and distribute it to all the residents of Cedarfield, in addition to updating team members throughout the campus. So that's our 5th item. And then our 6th item in our COVID-19 communication plan has to do with celebrating someone's life. In the unfortunate event that a person with a positive COVID-19 diagnosis passes away, we will use the processes that are already in place to share the news of a death of a resident at Cedarfield, as we have done for the last 24 years. Out of respect to the residents and their families and their loved ones, we will not be sharing information of the death of a resident who has had a positive COVID-19 diagnosis with the news media. Now is not the time to disrespect the privacy and the family commitments by making public announcements. But letting people know, as we always have been doing, that when we lose a resident, we will use the traditional ways through our pastoral services department, and we will celebrate that person's life. I feel pretty strongly about this last one. No one's going to become a statistic at Cedarfield. We're going to celebrate their life and honor their family and honor the person's wishes. So that's our COVID-19 communication. We are 100% focused on doing everything that we can to maintain a safe environment and providing you with services that keep you safe based on the most current information that I can possibly have, including working with the Virginia Department of Health on a daily basis, if not talking with them several times a day at this point. So I have a little video that I want to show you. This comes from the Health Pro Heritage team that is in our rehab services team. It's about 9 minutes, but the whole video is 45 minutes. I'm going to show you a 9-minute clip, and it talks about the COVID-19 disease. And when I was viewing it yesterday, it just spoke volumes to me of calmness and facts to help educate people so that you can use this information in a disarming way to relax and, more importantly, use the information to keep yourself safe. So I'm going to go to this video. It's about 9 minutes, and then I'll come back after these 9 minutes, and then we'll continue the rest of this live streaming. So bear with me a second while I load this up.
Why it's not working anymore.
The pandemic designation does not refer to severity or deadliness of the disease. It just says how widespread the disease is. As you'll see as we go through the facts, COVID-19 is easily transmissible because of a couple of unique factors. But that's all it means when it's a pandemic. Okay, next slide. The key thing to know about coronavirus, about COVID-19, is that it's a respiratory virus. That means it spreads in the air, droplets when somebody coughs or sneezes. So if you're within 6 feet of a person, that happens. The viral particles, what if they land on your knee? Are you going to get sick? No. They have to land on your eyes, your nose, or your mouth. And clearly, the nose and the mouth are the most common portals. That's the way it gets in. Think of your body as a fortress, because it is, with the skin and all the protective coverings. The only door that COVID-19 can enter is basically the nose and the mouth, and to a lesser extent. Now, someone can cough or sneeze and that can land on you. Okay, that's one way. But a more common way, perhaps, might be somebody, you're at the grocery store, somebody coughs and sneezes on the avocados 2 minutes before you get there. You pick up the avocados, still you can't get infected, put it in your bag, and then you touch Well, this is how all infections can spread that are respiratory. Some through large infectious droplets, some through small, and some through droplet nuclei. Tuberculosis is an example of one that spreads through droplet nuclei. It can go hundreds of feet. As best we know right now, and we know a lot, COVID-19 can only spread through large infectious droplets and small infectious droplets. That's why people talk about the 6 feet rule. Now the good news too is as the air gets warmer, air can hold on to more water. We call that humidity, right? And when it holds on to more water, air gets heavier. And how far these droplets go becomes even shorter. So in a high humid area, the small infectious droplets can maybe travel 3. And the large ones, maybe 1. Remember, the key point here is COVID-19 does not spread through those droplet nuclei. So if we look at the next slide, we can see other ways that it can spread by touch. Now you've seen the study, it was done by laboratory folks, that COVID-19 can remain airborne on plastic and steel for 72 hours, cardboard 24 hours, and cotton 4 hours. Okay, that's like, okay, freak out time when UPS and Federal Express delivers a box, right? You mean if he sneezed on it, it could be there for a day at least? This was done by a laboratory. That means, this study, that means somebody with a Petri dish and a little swab was checking these, go back and check the samples and come back later and check it again, is the virus still there? But Johns Hopkins repeated the study and didn't want to know if the virus was still present. They wanted to know how much virus is present. And what they found that 72 hours on plastic and steel, which is where it can last the longest, by the way, of any material, and 24 hours on cardboard, only 0.1% of the virus remained. That's 1 out of 1,000 particles. You see, that's the part that can be infectious, meaning it's theoretically possible to get an infection 72 hours on plastic and steel, 24 hours on cardboard. But it's also theoretically possible for you to win the lottery, right? It's very unlikely. And that gives a good point. When you look at COVID-19 studies, lab research is different than clinical research. For example, this would be an example of clinical research. We now know that if a married person gets COVID-19, their spouse who lives with them, shares the same bed with them, bathrooms and ever, only gets infected in about 55% of the cases. Just a little more than half. You see, that's clinical research, what really happens in the real world. While this was lab research and it freaked a lot of people out, unnecessarily, really. Next slide. One of the key things that we need to define is exposure. What does it mean that you're exposed? And the medical definition is prolonged close contact. Prolonged close contact. That's the true definition of exposed. So you're living in the same household as a sick person, to be an example. You're caring for a person. You're within 6 feet, now you know where the 6 feet comes from. You're within 6 feet of an infected person for more than a few minutes, typically 10 to 15 minutes. Or you're in direct contact with secretions. Somebody coughs and sneezes on you, you touch a tissue that's filled with mucus, you kiss somebody who's got COVID-19, you share a toothbrush, hopefully you don't do that, but toothbrush or fork or whatever with the person. That's the definition of prolonged close contact. So, let's say you go into somebody's room. I'll just give an example, it's not quite for therapy, but you'll get the point. And they're dropping off a food tray. They say hi to the person, nobody has a mask on, which would be unlikely these days. They drop off the food tray, they open up the milk, they take the cover off, and this person is infected and they don't know it. And then she leaves. Is that prolonged close contact? Well, the answer is no. Okay, let's move to another key point on incubation period and infectivity on the next slide. this is a key thing for you to know. Incubation period is the time from exposure, okay, somebody coughs right in your face, to your first symptom. The median now, which has been going down, is now down to about 4 days. Now it can be as short as 2 days, and we think as long as 14 days, although I can tell you, I have had, literally at this point, dozens and dozens of patients, dozens of staff members who have tested positive. I ask everyone, when were you exposed? When do you think you got exposed? Almost always it's 3, 4, 5, 6 days before they get sick, before the symptoms begin. And that's different from influenza where it's very tight. Now, why is this 4-day period? And again, it can't be 2 to 16. Why is it critical? People can be contagious during that period. And they're not sick. Remember, they haven't had their first symptom yet. Number 2, that's where the 14-day self-quarantine came up with. Because we thought from studies in China, up to 14 days, you could still get sick. Again, we're thinking that's probably doesn't happen very often. And suddenly, when you realize this 4 or 5, whatever day period, it's screenings, temperature screenings, and the challenge of keeping the virus out of a nursing home or an assisted living facility or protecting you and your loved ones is a little bit harder because people who are already infected feel perfectly fine. In fact, a study just came out yesterday, said the most infectious period seems to be about half a day before the symptoms start. Half a day before the symptoms start is when a person is most infectious. All right, next slide. Now, when people get sick, what are the symptoms? Typically, it's very mild for most people. 25%, 1 out of every 4 people now doesn't even know they have it, meaning they test positive and they felt fine. But a small percentage of cases become severe, and the worry, of course, is pneumonia. Now they looked at 55,000 people in China and who had confirmed cases. They said, what were your symptoms? Fever, cough, shortness of breath. Those are the big 3. The CDC just yesterday released the most recent findings. It was after I put this slide up. And they found that chest pressure and in the elderly an altered mental status, an altered confusion, for example, nuance and confusion can also be seen. And that just came out on an update from the CDC. But the big 3 still are fever, cough, shortness of breath. Okay, let's look at some of these symptoms a little bit more.
So hopefully that information was useful to you. I know it was extremely useful for me when I was reviewing it yesterday. That is a PowerPoint presentation, again, courtesy of Health Pro Heritage. That was their senior vice president talking in the background. That was the most recent information that they have been sharing with their entire team across the United States. Just a little update. Tonight I intend to follow up a plan that we also did last night. We sent a call 'em all message to all of the powers of attorney and responsible parties to let them know that these live streamings are videotaped and posted to mycedarfield.com. I intend to do that one more time tonight. So those residents that are listening out there who live in the health center, assisted living, to a lesser extent memory support, just wanted you to know that I'm going to be making that call one more time tonight. Our supplies shuttle program is going very well. Tomorrow is the opportunity for loved ones near and far to drop off supplies from 1 to 3 o'clock for those that have a loved one living in the health center, assisted living, or Sunshine Plaza. Transportation is going great. We are still providing medically critical transportation. I talked a little bit about the supply shuttle program. And grocery shopping is just going well, thanks to Ann Reed and all of her team that has been doing just an outstanding job. Just to give some folks a little bit a sense of the monumental task that they're doing every week, 4 days a week, they spend on average about $3,000 a week. On Mondays, they're serving about 45 residents, and then it tails off a little bit each day to about 30 on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. When they get to the checkout line, they typically have 3 to 5 shopping carts, heaping shopping carts with supplies. So thank you to Ann and the entire team. They're doing just a great job with that program. Couple of other administrative updates. It just so happens that this is the week every year for many, many years that we celebrate Careers in Aging Week. April 19th through the 25th, we are celebrating what we do, our vocation in life, and working in and around people 65 years of age and better. And so those that are listening right now, or those that are listening during this videotape, I would implore you, please, if you know of somebody that at our company, we employ many different trades, many different levels of education. We have a wide spectrum of the opportunity to work at Cedarfield or Pinnacle Living or any one of our campuses. If you know somebody that has a heart to be working around people 65 years or better, if you know somebody that wants to enrich life's journey, if you know somebody that wants to deliver great hospitality, wants to connect with our culture, loves celebrating diversity of thought, and respects differences of opinion, then we want to talk to them. And we want to hire them if they fit our culture and if they pass all of our HR practices. So please spread the news, as Frank Sinatra would say. Start spreading the news. This week is Careers in Aging Week, and we are looking for awesome people to be around our most cherished residents. And then finally for me, I keep talking about our 9 domains of well-being. And every time I talk about it, I can't think enough about Tom Maxwell and Amy Chapman, to just name 2 of many people I know that helped pioneer this whole concept, this whole philosophy. And I was told that you all received another well-being scorecard in your meal bag on Monday or Tuesday. I'm hoping that everyone's using their scorecard to keep track of your 9 domains of well-being and make sure you're hitting on something within one of those domains each day, or trying to come up with at least a good plan for the whole week. Yours truly is using that scorecard at home. My children are using it. My bride is using it. I'm using it to make sure that we have we're taking in the whole person through this pandemic. So I share this picture with you because it's important for me to get out in Mother Nature. I walk the dog in the morning and at night. I took a little walk here at lunchtime. This is actually one of a little rose that's in our garden here, right outside of the main building of the Pathways to Wellness building. And then I took this picture. This is how important Pathways to Wellness is to Cedarfield. We just invested $10 million into this building. And I know residents can't go into the pool right now and into the exercise room, but you can certainly be doing something about your whole well-being without actually going into a building. So please, I implore you, use your scorecard, connect with Florence and Trish on a spiritual perspective. David and the team are doing an unbelievable job, and Carol with nutrition, and Karen and Elizabeth are trying to really put so much content on mycedarfield.com so that you can work on your intellectual domain of well-being or your vocational domain of well-being. There is so much that we can all be doing to really center ourselves around our well-being. So, one more thing I'm doing with my intellectual well-being, I just received this book, The Coronavirus Prevention Handbook. Look who the author is, Dr. Wong, the chief physician at the Wuhan Center. I'm going to read this cover to cover tonight and see what he has today about the 101 science-based tips that can save your life. So tomorrow, I'll try to read it cover to cover. I'm trying to get my sleep as well. But if I find interesting tidbits that could benefit all of Cedarfield, I'll share it tomorrow during our live stream. Speaking of spiritual health, Trish Carter is here to give us some words of wisdom. Hi, Trish.
Thank you, Michael. Not only for being such a dedicated leader here at Cedarfield, but for caring so much. I want to tell you about a writer, a poet, Liesl Mueller. She died 2 months ago, at the age of 96. She escaped Nazi Germany as a teenager. She wrote a poem, many, many poems, but the one I will highlight today is called Hope. H-O-P-E, hope. So I want you to keep that word, hope, in your mind as you hear this poem. Hope. It hovers in dark corners before the lights are turned on. It shakes sleep from its eyes and drops from mushroom gills. It explodes in the starry heads of dandelions turned sages. It sticks to the wings of green angels that sailed from the tops of maples. It sprouts in each occluded eye of the many-eyed potato. It lives in each earthworm segment, surviving cruelty. It is the motion that runs from the eyes to the tail of a dog. It is the mouth that inflates the lungs of the child that has just been born. It is the singular gift we cannot destroy in ourselves, the argument that refutes death, the genius that invents the future, all we know of God. It It is the serum which makes us swear not to betray one another. It is in this poem trying to speak hope.